wengine wameambiwa lugha hiyo kwa sababu ya kuzungumza sauti ile ambayo kwamba ni ya Wakenya, ilisababisha sheria ile ile kwa sababu haikuweza kufuatwa kisawasawa, ikaenda nje, mahakama wakaweza kuamua ya kwa sio sawa. Sasa hili bunge lisiwe ambalo litatumika, Bwana Spika, kwa tunatengeza sheria baadaye kuonekana ya kwa zile sheria zilijaribu kupitishwa kimabavu, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo mimi namsihi mwenzangu sana, kwa sababu katika mambo ambayo kwamba tutakaoweza kuzorotana hapa katika jumba hili, Bwana Spika, kando na haya ambayo kwamba ni mambo ya National Aviation Bill, kuna mengine ambayo kwamba yatakao kuja hapa ya kuhusiana na mkataba ya kuweza kuunganisha Kenya Port Authority, Kenya Railway, Kenya Pipeline na pia ICDC. Hayajakuja hapa, Bwana Spika, lakini yatakuja, na yakifika hapa tutayazungumza, na vile vile wenzetu walivyoweza kuambiwa ya kwa wana yale ambao kwamba wanayataka wao, tutayazungumza hapa katika jumba hili. Na mimi nawasihi Bwana Spika, ya kwa wenzetu wote walioko hapa tuweze kufuata mamlaka ambao kwamba tumeweza kupatiwa, sio kuzungumza nje peke yake, lakini tukiwa tunajaribu kutetea watu wetu, tuwatetee watu wetu kupitia jumba hili ambalo kila mmoja ameweza kuapishwa kikatiba kwa kushika kitabu cha dini ambacho kwamba anaoifuata yeye, ya kwa mambo ya wale ambao kwamba ni wa Kenya walioweza kuchagua ndio atakuwa ni ya kwanza. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Member for Garissa.
Speaker, let me now talk from the experience, because this is the first time in my history as a member of parliament to see that a report that has been tabled where issues has been raised of public participation. It's my first time. And Mr. Speaker, the procedure of public participation is well documented. If you follow it from the time the bill is published, it matures. If the chair can give me time, it matures, it's ready for the first time. Then the clerk's office does the advertisement. The period is set. People submit memorandums. Others want to appear. And Mr. Speaker, that is what public participation is. And it's critical in Article 118. Mr. Speaker, and you'll agree with me, of all the litigations that went to court on legislation passed by this House, the courts will always use two things: either to nullify or to agree with the process of legislation. One is the Hansard, and two is the report of the committee in terms of public participation. And then second reading, and then third reading. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, you have seen of late a fundamental amendment that comes at the committee of the whole House, the courts have been rejecting it. The reason being because that amendment is substantial and it has not been subjected to public participation. And if I had time, I could have cited a number of legislation where the courts disagreed with the House. Speaker, what is going on this afternoon, you need to make a very good ruling. Because if we go this route, then and litigant goes to court tomorrow after we pass this bill, he will even use the Hansard of today, what Honorable TJ said. Because, I mean, the House is already indicting its own report, the report even before it comes to second reading, third reading. So I think, Mr. Speaker, you need to make a serious ruling on this matter. And I really want to ask the chair of the committee that if there are individuals, if there are people who wanted to appear, let us be very honest, if there are people who wanted to appear before the committee and they were not given chance, including what Honorable TJ has gone on record, the Law Society of Kenya, Speaker, I think you need to maybe after listening to everybody to go back, sit with the technical team of Parliament, the director of committee, the clerk, see the memorandum that have been sent, find out if there are people who have been not been given an opportunity by the committee, and on the basis of that, Mr. Speaker, then you can make a ruling. Less than that, if we don't do that, and we just go like this, I can tell you, you are already preparing Omtata and the rest, litigants. You're already preparing their their defense. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a serious matter, and this is the first time I've seen a report tabled is being challenged on public participation. So it's a heavy, from where I see it, from the experience I have, it's a heavy matter. You need to maybe listen to more and make a decision before we go to second reading.
Member for Kadri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now that the former leader of majority has spoken, and the same with colleagues, what I note, Mr. Speaker, is first, the importance of the issues raised on public participation. But also, I ask myself, Mr. Speaker, a report has just been tabled. Okay, some members are privy, they are aware, they have received complaints, maybe from some institutions that were not accorded a chance to give their views, to give their presentation to the committee. But obviously, upon committal of any bill or legislative piece to a committee, the procedure is to go through that public participation. But also, when a report is tabled before the House, Mr. Speaker, it would go through the normal process of having it debated. When we have, usually the report informs members on the details about the bill, then debate is based on that report or information, Mr. Speaker. Now, I have not seen that report, it's just been tabled. I cannot tell whether public were involved, they participated in it or not. The best, I thought procedurally, would have been to allow, Mr. Speaker, in the normal way, this report to be subjected, members to look at it, and then debate. And then matters would arise from the debate on that particular report, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I do agree public participation is one of the requirements. For any successful legislation, public participation is one of the requirements. So I think it's important, I agree, you need to look at it. But also I ask myself, Mr. Speaker, how would I have known that public did not participate from the report that has been tabled now? So these are issues that you need to consider also, and on whether this should just go on and accord the reports, the normal route that we take as a procedure in the House. Then the rest can follow, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Member for Daragwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that opportunity for me to just say one or two things. One is that it is a little unsettling to see ourselves perhaps discussing a report that we have not had a look at, because it's just been tabled. So what is informing us is certainly information that is members will have obtained ahead of time, and it is not a crime to obtain the information ahead of time. But, Mr. Speaker, I think one of the crucial things is to ensure that even as we charge the report, we charge it within the procedures of Parliament. Two is that when we are in this House, we certainly are representing the interest of others, including those of the people of Daragwa. And I think the only bad thing would be if somebody has paid me to come and or to try and influence what I think. And but lobbying is normal. It's something that we should allow. We should not become hostile to one another because we are sharing different views. And I think it is important now that even with this issue of public participation, which has been raised by my colleague, my member in the committee, and we are very keen on implementing the Constitution as it should be. Public participation is crucial. It must be done. But I think it's one of the things that we need to address ourselves as members of Parliament, even as people elected to represent others, going forward, to ask ourselves if all that we do is to listen to others and bring what they have said to the floor, we must make sure that we never reduce ourselves to the level of clerks. We represent people, and this principle is a good one. But if it's again overstretched, it can also stagnate registration completely. Because we've got to be, I think, going forward, we may be able to eventually define the limits or the threshold of public participation. But it will always be thrown to us to either delay us or something. But in this particular case, Mr. Speaker, let me say this. I think if it is possible to try and accommodate others who have, who think were left out, let it be. But it is also important for even those who think have been left out to understand the process of registration so that they know at what point they come in. I know there are people who actually don't pay attention to what we do as Parliament, only for them to come later on and challenge the process, throw in obstacles, and that can also, they can also delay us as members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I remember when we had the bill here on Article 100, and there is a fundamental amendment to that bill that was introduced on the floor. And again, it was introduced by that time the leader of my majority. He worked very well with the minority leader to kill my bill, a very fundamental thing. And I think he is also, he quickly may find himself in court because that was a thing we had worked on from the public. So we need to quite quickly get into terms with these issues. But my concern is, if you are not careful, public participation can also be used to delay registration on the floor. But it is always important to make sure that we give opportunity to people to bring in what they have, but within the timelines. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Wajir North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I happen to be a member of the Transport Committee, and I was involved in this process right from the initial stage. Mr. Speaker, without an iota of doubt in my mind, I'm one of those who have dissented the report. We are 5 in number. And I can assure you that one of the reasons for dissenting the report was what members are raising, of which public participation is inclusive. The Speaker and his clerk have allowed us. The Speaker and the clerk have allowed us to go for a retreat during this difficult period to ensure that the process is adequately done. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that the 2 days we were given, it was only within 2 hours that this report was exhausted. And on that very day, within the 2 hours, the report was exhaustively done. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, one of the key issues I raised, and the Hansard will prove me right, was the issue of public participation. And one of the agencies I raised was LSK and the Competition Authority of Kenya to look into issues of competition laws. Mr. Speaker, I vividly remember that we have given them 1 day within these chambers. Only the guidance provided by the chair was that our meeting can only extend for 2 hours because during this difficult period of COVID-19, it is difficult to continue doing these issues. And Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that the process has not been exhaustive. That notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, we were exhaustively supposed to review various documents done by these agencies, including a transaction advisor's progress report from KAA. I can assure you that this committee had no access to this report even 1 single day. Very important, that will inform us. We were all in agreement that we must save KQ during this difficult period. However, we were supposed to do it in a good manner, that we were to do exhaustive public participation and review of all relevant documents. Here I have transaction advisor's report, which the committee had no access to up to date. That notwithstanding, very important report, a report by the Kenya Airports Authority, valuation report, very important. The committee had no access to this report even a single day. This report was done within 2 hours. We have dissented, we have raised our voice, and of course the Hansard will prove me right. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you this report was not exhaustive. It is only important to return to the committee to ensure better conclusion of this report. Thank you.
No, there's nothing. He was also on a point of order. Everybody wants to be, but now, I think many of you have really spoken. I have not had representation. Honorable Rosa Boyu, I told you don't shout. You are creating disorder by shouting. I've given you the chance. You don't even see.
Oh. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm on a point of order, and I would just like to ask that is the honorable member in order to suggest that the committee is not does not have the reports that is showing us, the specific reports, and yet is a member of that committee and is holding the reports in his hand. Is he in order to hold those reports and bluntly tell us that the committee has in no way seen those reports, yet as a member of the committee, he's actually holding those reports? So
he is a member of the committee, but he is not the committee. I think there's a difference. Unless we want to, honor members, and many of you have heard you say this. There are some people in the county governments who are called members of county executive committees, CEC. But I've heard many of you say, I also have my CEC here, CEC for education. So what you are saying is you have a committee of education, executive committee, not the member. So you also need to define some titles. That one is member, but he is talking about the committee. Those ones are members, but they are not the committees. Member for Kikuyu. Finally, before I give the chairman the chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And a number of fundamental issues, Honorable Speaker, have been raised. And I was particularly keen on what the member of Wajir North has said, that they are dissenting, and I was wondering and asking myself whether him and any other member of the committee who are dissenting, whether they may afford a minority report that could have been tabled also together with this report. But fundamentally, Honorable Speaker, I have perused through this report. And indeed, the issue raised by Honorable T.J. Kajwang on public participation, and he did mention the Law Society of Kenya as among the stakeholders. And I can see the written submissions that were received by the committee includes that of the Law Society of Kenya and at least another 5 law firms that have written submissions. However, Honorable Speaker, I think the issue that TJ raised is an issue of the adequacy of public participation. And there is a complaint, Honorable Speaker, and I'm also privy to a discussion I had with a few of the members of that committee, that the Law Society of Kenya has indeed written to the committee protesting the issue of not having been allowed to appear before the committee. More fundamentally, Honorable Speaker, is that the notice, Honorable Speaker, is a notice that was given by the Office of the Clerk that members of the public, including the Law Society of Kenya and all the other people who have written memoranda, were only given 5 days. Understandably, Honorable Speaker, with these COVID times, there might have been issues. But COVID, Honorable Speaker, all over the world, we have been challenged that even parliamentary democracy is being threatened, and democracy around the world is being threatened by this pandemic in terms of it being used as an excuse not to allow due process to be followed. And we must not fall prey to that danger, Honorable Speaker. But also, Honorable Speaker, other than public participation, what this bill seeks to do, Honorable Speaker, and I want to agree with the member of that committee, the member for Wajir North, what this bill seeks to do is to nationalize Kenya Airways. Kenya Airways, Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, is not just making losses. It is making monumental losses. With COVID-19, it is at a higher risk of even making further higher losses. We seek to nationalize Kenya Airways by merging it with the Kenya Airports Authority. And I'm happy the member of Wajir North, and I think he's taking over from my experience as a former vice chair of the Public Investments Committee, has spoken about a valuation report of Kenya Airways. And he will look at the audited accounts of 2019 of Kenya Airways Authority. Kenya Airways Authority is holding assets worth about 1.3 trillion shillings. And that is the institution that we seek to now merge with KQ that is making losses and is bound to make further losses because of COVID-19. Without valuing Kenya Airways, valuing KQ, and being able to understand how feasible, or rather having a feasibility report that tells this country and all stakeholders how feasible is this transaction to merge a loss-making entity to go and gobble up assets, financial assets and other assets of Kenya Airports Authority that are public assets. Honorable Speaker, more fundamentally for me as an accountant, Honorable Speaker, other than a loss-making institution taking over a profit-making institution, is a question of a public entity and the privacy of KQ, because KQ, remember, has shareholders, private shareholders, including myself, I'm a shareholder at KQ. We must be able to understand how are we going to deal with the question of the individual shareholders, how are we dealing with the question of commercial banks that had lent money to KQ and are owed billions. And those billions, Honorable Speaker, then we might use the assets of KAA and other public institutions to offset those debts. Honorable Speaker, it is a matter that is more weighty than the report I am seeing here, Honorable Speaker. To be honest, and with all due respect to my good friend, Honorable Kosing, this report is too shallow for a fundamental issue like the merger and nationalization of Kenya Airways. And I would really beg the chair to allow the House and members of the public a little bit of more public participation. Go into the issues of feasibility, valuation of the assets of all the institutions that you seek to merge, so that finally when you bring us a report, it is a report not just bulky, Honorable Speaker, because the bulk of this report, I can tell you, is the minutes of committee attendance. The substance of the report, Honorable Speaker, is zero, absolutely zero. And I would beg that we set aside, you find it wise, Honorable Speaker, to set aside this report and ask the chair to spend a little bit of more time on looking at the issues that have been raised, including the issue of public participation, the issue of our feasibility study, the issue of looking at the transaction advisors' reports and being able to understand even valuation of the assets of all the institutions that are involved, and the implication that it will have, as I think the member, Honorable Kirima, mentioned, on the entire aviation industry, Honorable Speaker. And with that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support the point of order that had been raised.
Now, before I allow the chair to respond, let me allow the leader majority to give it a second.
Yes. Thank you, Speaker. I had written earlier on a point of order because I realized I think there were perhaps conflicts of interest that were not being declared. But be that as it may, the issue we have here is a bill was introduced into this House through a first reading. The bill has not come on the order paper for it to be read a second time. But we've already started debating a bill. The report, the committee, is only reacting to a bill that was committed before them. The committee is not reacting to a decision to privatize. It's pursuant to, this matter was brought to this House through a report of the same committee. And I believe that report was actually dated, was brought here and approved by this House on 17th of June, 2019, on the inquiry into the Kenya Airways privately initiated investment proposal, which was prepared by the departmental committee. It was brought to this House, approved by this House, and pursuant to that, a bill has been prepared. So we are now going back to where we were before 2019, because either some members were not in the House, and now they are hearing this for the first time. But this bill was prepared pursuant to an approval of that process by this House. And the House then said, now let us have a bill to now take forward this process. A bill was prepared. It was committed to a committee. A committee has looked at this bill. They have prepared a report for us. Now, the second thing we need is for the House Business Committee to allocate time for this bill to come before the House for second reading. Now, during that time, members will have an opportunity to look at the clauses, to look at all the issues, bring the matters on the floor, and we'll make a decision on whether the bill should proceed second reading or not. And if it proceeds, they also bring in the committee stage, they have an opportunity to even seek from all those other stakeholders the amendments that members in the individual capacity can bring. So that at the committee stage, you can bring all those amendments, then we have an act of parliament by this House, not by the committee. So I think we are now prematurely trying to kill a baby even before it has left the labor ward, right? It's been brought to the House. Let us wait. We are anticipating debate. We are already debating because we have information that other members don't have. Yet, when you look at the report which I've just been perusing through, there's a whole list of stakeholders who came. Others sent their memoranda. Now, the fact that somebody's memoranda has not been accepted in total does not mean they did not participate. It means they participated, but their views were not taken into account. That's different from saying, I did not participate. I was not given adequate time. How much is adequate time? And I think if we start doing this, as the Honorable member for Daragwa has said, we end up with a situation where we'll be falling victim to the agitation by the civil society out there that this House will never do anything without being challenged because you'll be told there was not adequate participation. How much is adequate? We are becoming victims of, we are making ourselves victims of their own accusations out there, and soon this House will never be able to legislate or will always be challenged on everything they legislate. Let's start firm. Time has been given. People are told to come, others to send memoranda. Now, if somebody's memoranda was sent outside time and they still want to be considered, you as an individual member still have an opportunity to bring that issue on the floor of the House during the second reading of this bill and to bring any amendment at the committee stage. But let us respect the work the committee has put. And otherwise we are going to kill committees. That they do all the work, they bring a report, before you've even seen it, somebody comes and says that report should be thrown out even before it has been debated. So, and I think, Mr. Speaker, let us be careful that we don't set a precedent where we will make it that anyone who is dissatisfied with what is going on in a committee then comes before here or tells a member to come and raise an issue to kill a report even before the House has had an opportunity to look at it and debate it and put their input into it to either enrich it or to refer it back to a committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This is the chairman of the committee.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance. And Honorable Speaker, I'm fairly senior in this House, this being my second term. I've never seen something like this, Honorable Speaker. Although people have independence and freedoms to say what they want to do and at any time, Honorable Speaker, but I have not seen this before. However, Honorable Speaker, because we are not discussing the pros and cons of the bill, I am certain that, Honorable Speaker, what we are trying or what you are trying to listen to from us, Honorable Speaker, is whether the process was followed. So that when it comes to the second reading, then we can now discuss about the bill. Honorable Speaker, the process as you guided and guided by the standing orders and the laws of Parliament was 100% followed, Honorable Speaker. I want to attest to that effect as the chair of this committee. And this is not the first bill, Honorable Speaker, that my committee has processed. It's not, Honorable Speaker. And what we did in the past, we also did the same. Which is, Honorable Speaker, after it was committed to my committee, what are we supposed to do? Advertise. Which was done, Honorable Speaker, and done by the office of the clerk. And when for the process, people submitted memoranda. And Honorable Speaker, something almost like what is happening in the House came to my committee when we were trying to consider. And honorable members, including honorable member from Wajir, who is a member of my committee, had also their own suggestions. And Honorable Speaker, they felt that maybe let's give it time. And we did, Honorable Speaker. We gave even more than 2 weeks for members to read again and so on. Honorable Speaker, if somebody is interested or influenced and they are free, Honorable Speaker. Let them not bring politics into this bill, Honorable Speaker. I beg the House and I beg you, Honorable Speaker. Number two, who are we talking about? They talk about Law Society of Kenya. Law Society of Kenya, first of all, if you were to read, Honorable Speaker, and allow, if these members would have allowed, but have tabled, if members were allowed to look at the report, Honorable Speaker, then they will see that all people who submitted memoranda are in that report, Honorable Speaker, including the attachments in terms of the appendix, Honorable Speaker. They are there, Honorable Speaker. And LSK submitted its memoranda way after the time. Honorable Father of the House, give me some time. Honorable Speaker, Law Society of Kenya, which is now a party in this debate, submitted its memoranda, Honorable Speaker, way out of time. But Honorable Speaker, because we, being human beings, we said, let's give everybody an opportunity. We invited every person who submitted proposal, Honorable Speaker, or memoranda for public participation. We invited in this House, Honorable Speaker. Everybody was to come. That particular day, Honorable Speaker, what happened? LSK sent an apology. They sent an apology to say, please give us another time. We are doing our business in Mombasa. Honorable Speaker, Parliament and my committee cannot transact business being dictated or given programs by another person, Honorable Speaker. A House must proceed in its own calendar. And you gave us, Honorable Speaker, that when we come back, we submit the report. We gave them opportunity, Honorable Speaker. Apart from, number one, submitting out of time, we even had to bend backward to accommodate them, Honorable Speaker, and invite them to this committee. They never attended, Honorable Speaker. It is on record, it is in my answer. So what are we supposed to do, Honorable Speaker? We are supposed to do what we were supposed to do. Everybody else, Honorable Speaker, did what they are supposed to do. I'm pleading, Honorable Speaker, that you allow this process to proceed. You will rule, Honorable Speaker, looking at the President. But, Honorable Speaker, allow me as a human being to say this. I've heard some of these things, Honorable Speaker. This bill is a product of the House. You know what happened, Honorable Speaker? PIP came, and it was controversial. And what happened? It pit me between Committee of Transport and PIC, Honorable Speaker, you know that. And you guided, Honorable Speaker, that my committee looks at the issues. Honorable Speaker, we went through the issues. It took us about 8 months or 1 year. We brought the report here, Honorable Speaker. The report, Honorable Speaker, is a replica, or this bill is a replica of that report that was approved by the House. If there is any bill that has gone through proper public participation, Honorable Speaker, it is this one. And I dare and I bet on it, Honorable Speaker. Why? It started as an inquiry. 8 months. We invited everybody in this country, including workers, Honorable Speaker. They came before my committee. They gave their views. We listened to them, and we thought that the best way is to nationalize. We brought the entire report with the proposals, and this bill, Honorable Speaker, if you look at this bill, it has not deviated from the report that was approved by the House. Honorable Speaker, maybe some members were not there or were not listening, or they have been influenced, and they are free. But, Honorable Speaker, it is a product of the House. So it was not rushed, because it took 8 reports only before even the bill was prepared by government. It took 8 months, Honorable Speaker, in the public outside there. Inquiry, report writing, roundtable, and so on. All that was done, including the Competition Authority. And of course, you know where the Competition Authority go if they have issues. They go to Treasury. And National Treasury, CS, appeared before my committee and presented their views. At that inquiry time, Honorable Speaker. And then when the House approved, what did it approve? That KQ must be nationalized. It is this House, Honorable Speaker. And this House, Honorable Kajwang is sitting, and he participated in that approval, that KQ should be nationalized. After nationalization, Honorable Speaker, and I'm surprised, Honorable Chungwa, I don't know what has changed. Even if he was removed from the committee of a budget, and he is now in playing politics, he should play his politics in Kikuyu, not in Parliament, Honorable Speaker. He participated in approving it, Honorable Speaker. He approved it. When I'm here, Honorable Speaker. So what happened? What we said, Honorable Speaker, it should be nationalized. That's number one. Number two, we create an agency that will hold. It's not a merger, Honorable Speaker. And I want to correct Honorable Chungwa to read the report. If you look at that report, there's no merger. KQ has shares as much as KA has shares. They are different entities, Honorable Speaker. They are only influenced, Honorable Speaker, by their own political persuasion. And if this politics, then we'll meet in politics in our constituency, Honorable Speaker. But that has allowed Kenyans an opportunity for them to read the bill, Honorable Speaker, and our report. We did one of the best reports in this country, Honorable Speaker. My committee did, Honorable Speaker. And you know we are committed, Honorable Speaker. When you direct us, we do a proper job. We did, Honorable Speaker. Procedure was followed. And let me also share with the House and you, Honorable Speaker, what I heard yesterday. These issues were simmering around. And some members of my committee came to my office. Some of them were threatened not to sign, Honorable Speaker. Some of them were threatened not to sign this report. This report has not been signed by about 4 members. And if you look at those 4 members, Honorable Speaker, you can almost demographically know. And I want to say this, Honorable Speaker, this is dangerous for the country. And one of the members I was asking, why would you not sign the report? And he's telling me, Honorable Speaker, I was told even this report will not see the light of the day. It's going to be returned back. So, Honorable Chair, I'm not going to sign because it's in a ritual anyway. Honorable Speaker, I am shocked this afternoon, Honorable Speaker, when I see the direction upon which members are taking. Honorable Speaker, you know what I do? If you return back to my committee, I will do diligent job, Honorable Speaker. I'm ready. I'm a performer, Honorable Speaker. And being a cattle keeper, I keep the cows properly, Speaker. I will follow even the smallest feet or foot. I will proceed, Honorable Speaker, and I will prosecute the matter. I have no problem you returning the report, Honorable Speaker. But I'm only fearing that should we go this direction, Honorable Speaker, then we are not going to do any other report in future. Why? Because somebody will stand and say, no public participation, I was not involved. And then when we return the report. So when we return this report, Honorable Speaker, what happens? What will happen? Will it mean that now I take all the views from the person who refused himself to come? Or what happens, Honorable Speaker? I will be also confused. And say what happens? I will plead with you, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, to say this. This report is a report. It's not a bill. And members, even if they might have done whatever they have done by whatever, because they represent people, and how they represent their people, it is free. Honorable Speaker, they can produce those items in the second reading when we are debating this report, Honorable Speaker. And then we go to the committee of the whole House. If they can submit other reports, whatever honorable member of my committee is trying to induce that this report was not there, it came in the last 8 months, Honorable Speaker, when we were doing inquiry. Those reports came, Honorable Speaker, and it is on record. It is in Parliament. So I'm pleading with you, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude that allow the process to proceed, because there's a danger. If you allow LSK, only LSK, out of about 30 people, then there is a problem, Honorable Speaker. And I've seen even in reports when we are doing amendments.
Now, the deputy majority leader, you are creating disorder in the House. You are out of order.
I thank you, Excellency, Honorable Speaker, for protecting me from the leader of the House. But Honorable Speaker, as I say, protect your committee, protect us, Honorable Speaker, protect the process of Parliament, protect the House. If anybody feels that they have not been considered, let them come in the second reading when we're debating, and then we can also have an amendment. It's not the end of the day. The only danger is, Honorable Speaker, so what am I supposed to do? And what about another report?
The Chief Health Officer of Nairobi Metropolitan, Dr. Ouma Oluga, on